My son once told me, "Don't count on a cent from Dad's estate." He said it with a smirk, like he'd already signed the papers himself. But when the lawyer called my name during the will reading, the color drained from his face. He leaned over to his wife and muttered, "She's still alive? Maybe we should check before we start reading." That was the greeting I got. The widow, still in black, still smelling of roses from my husband's funeral bouquet. They hadn't even shaken the dirt off their shoes from the burial when the family gathered again. Not to mourn, but to measure what they could take. The house that once echoed with laughter now buzzed with footsteps, whispers, and the soft click of greed. I stood at the bottom of the staircase, gripping the same rail my husband polished every Sunday. From there, I watched my own blood divide our life like scavengers circling a feast. "This one's mine," my grandson said, slapping a neon sticker onto the grandfather clock. Then another on the armchair, another on the china cabinet. His sister followed, waving her phone, an app open to scan every corner. "We'll remodel this once she's out," she said casually. "Maybe turn it into a spa. Needs better lighting." No one looked at me. No one asked if I was hungry or tired or breathing. My daughter-in-law glided through the hallway, tray of champagne glasses in her manicured hands. "We're celebrating your husband's legacy," she said brightly, her perfume drowning out the faint scent of lilies from the funeral. Someone chuckled. "And cleaning out the ghosts while we're at it." They replaced my seat at the dining table with a folding chair, dragged in from the garage. One leg wobbled. No cushion, no dignity. When I tried to sit, they pointed me toward the mudroom instead. "You'll be more comfortable there. Away from the noise," my son said without meeting my eyes. So I sat, beside a mop bucket and a cracked broom, handle, with a paper plate of dry chicken and cold potatoes. From the next room came laughter, the clinking of glasses, the shuffling of plans. "This house smells like mothballs and death," someone said. "Let's gut the kitchen. Rip out the wallpaper. Paint the walls before she's gone." My grandson appeared again, grinning as he slapped a bright orange sticker on the sideboard beside me. "Mine." His sister was still recording with her phone, mapping out my home like it was an empty property listing. They didn't whisper. They didn't hide. I held my teacup with both hands just to stop the shaking. Then came the laughter, sharp, cruel, echoing off the walls. "Dad said she'd die before him. Guess that was his only mistake. She built soup," someone sneered, "and he built an empire. Can we still cash her pension checks if we forward her mail?" The youngest laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. "Let her rot with the memories," they said. "Let her fade with the wallpaper. Let her die quietly." I didn't answer. I didn't cry. But my hand slipped into my sweater pocket and brushed the edge of a folded paper. The document I'd kept hidden for 15 years. They didn't know my name was inked on the foundation of everything they were celebrating. They didn't know that when the empire was falling apart, it was me who sold the jewelry, wired the funds, and whispered to my husband, "Use it, but never tell them it came from me." And he never did. Not until now. 15 years earlier, before the mansion, before the empire, there was only fear. I still remember the night my husband came home late, his tie hanging loose, his eyes tired in a way I had never seen. He didn't speak at first. He didn't have to. I could read the truth in the slump of his shoulders. The company was collapsing. The bank had called. The contracts were gone. "We just need one good deal," he murmured, staring at the fire like it could burn the shame out of him. "One investor. If I can close the New York proposal, we'll make it." But there was a problem. He had no collateral left to offer. He had pride but no liquidity. That night, while he slept beside me, I sat on the edge of the bed with my jewelry box open on my lap. Inside were my wedding bangles, my mother's emerald ring, the pearl brooch I wore at our engagement party, pieces of my life, of my past, all glittering quietly under the lamp. One by one, I wrapped them in tissue paper, placed them into a velvet pouch, and sold them the next morning. No tears, no hesitation. I just did it. I didn't tell anyone, not even him. I simply wired the funds directly to the escrow account, listed on the contract, and left a note on his desk, "Use it, but don't ask where it came from." By the end of that week, the deal went through. The investors signed. The company survived. Everyone called him a genius, a visionary who saved his business from the brink of ruin. I stood beside him, smiling as people toasted his brilliance, never saying a word. That wasn't the part that hurt the most. A month later, I saw the new company brochure. His picture stretched across the front, the headline underneath. Read a legacy built alone. I laughed when I read it. A small, hollow laugh that stuck in my throat. It wasn't anger, not yet. Just a quiet ache. He didn't mean harm. I knew that. He just believed in a story that everyone else did. The myth of the self-made man. And I was taught that women don't correct myths. They simply fade behind them. But that night, while he celebrated another victory with champagne and applause, I sat in the kitchen with a mug of tea and started writing. The company was preparing for its next phase, a public launch. But his ideas were outdated. So I took out a pad of paper and wrote the first draft of what would become their IPO proposal. Page after page, I built models, market forecasts, expansion strategies, the kind of work I used to do before. I traded boardrooms for baby bottles. When I finished, I didn't sign my real name. I signed a pseudonym, L. Brightwood, a name I used long ago for my college articles. Then I mailed it to the company office with no return address. 2 days later, he came home with that same proposal in his hand, grinning. "Someone sent this anonymously," he said. "It's brilliant. Even the handwriting feels familiar, like yours." I smiled and kept stirring the soup. 6 months later, that anonymous proposal brought in over $40 million in new investments. They hung a plaque in the lobby, inspired by ingenuity. His ingenuity. And once again, I smiled, because I didn't need the credit then. All I wanted was for us to keep living. But silence, I've learned, can be the slowest kind of death. You keep swallowing your worth until the world forgets you ever had any. And that's what I did, quietly, gracefully, until they mistook my silence for absence. They think they built an empire. They don't know it was held together by my sacrifice and my signature. It was 5 days after the funeral when the laughter began again. The lilies on the piano had started to rot, their scent turning sour, but no one noticed. Grief had already been packed away with the casket. Now came the sorting, the claiming, the clearing, and that clearing began with me. "We've decided it's best if she moves downstairs," Clarissa announced, voice bright and brittle. "The laundry room?" I asked quietly. She smiled, lips painted the color of wine. "Technically, it's a utility space. There's room for a cot upstairs." I could hear drawers slamming, closets opening, the squeak of suitcase wheels over hardwood. Someone laughed. My perfume bottles clinked together in a box marked donation. Another carton read old lady junk. They didn't even bother to hide the labels. My grandson was walking through the hallway like an auctioneer, clipboard in hand. "That end table's perfect for the lake house," he said. A neon sticker appeared. "This one's mine." And just like that, another piece of my life was claimed. The rocking chair where I nursed my son through fever. The record player that played our first dance. The framed photo of our anniversary, all gone, tagged like inventory. Clarissa stopped at the doorway, carrying a folded towel and a bottle of unscented shampoo. "These are for you," she said, dropping them beside the cot. "Dinner's at 7. You can eat after we're done." So I waited. When the laughter from the dining room drifted down the hall, I opened a tin of soup I'd hidden from the pantry. No can opener. I pried it open with my house key. They thought I didn't hear them. "She built soup," someone whispered earlier. "Dad built an empire. She built soup, as if nourishment wasn't a foundation, as if keeping everyone alive counted for nothing because it didn't earn interest. I built soup, yes, but I also built them." The cruelty wasn't loud. It was careful. It was polished. It came wrapped in smiles and good manners, but it cut just the same. Later, when the house finally went still, I walked to the fridge and found the anniversary photo wedged behind a broom. The glass was cracked. Dust clung to the frame. I wiped it clean and held it to my chest. We looked so young in that picture, hopeful, unbroken. I sat on the cot, staring at the peeling paint on the wall, and something inside me hardened. Not anger, not hate, but clarity. They wanted me small. They wanted me silent. They wanted me gone before the will was even read. But I was not done. Upstairs, behind a loose floorboard, I had a leather-bound folder. Inside were pages they had never seen. Proof of every sacrifice, every signature, every idea they'd stolen. And tomorrow the lawyer would finally see them, because I was finished being erased. The next morning, I left before dawn. The house was still and cold, the kind of silence that only follows betrayal. Clarissa's perfume lingered in the hallway, sweet and suffocating, as I slipped out the back door. Folder clutched under my arm. I didn't take the car. They'd already changed the garage code. So I walked, one trembling step after another. until the bus stop appeared through the fog. My reflection in the glass shelter looked like a stranger. Gray hair loose, eyes red but sharp. For the first time in months, I felt awake. When I reached the lawyer's office, he was already waiting. Mr. Daniels, my husband's old partner, rose from behind his desk with a kind smile. "Mrs. Hargrove," he said softly, "I was wondering when you'd come." I placed the folder on the polished oak. Inside were decades of papers, tax filings, property deeds, handwritten notes, and one document that would change everything. He opened the folder and froze. This isn't what your son thinks it is," he murmured, scanning the signatures. "That's the original incorporation record," I said. "And that second name beside his father's? That's mine." He looked up, eyes wide. "So half the company belongs to me," I finished. It was my handwriting that filled those early ledgers. My designs that started the home brand everyone bragged about at parties. I had drawn them on grocery receipts while stirring soup, written formulas between bills and birthday reminders. And when my husband passed, I had quietly transferred my shares into a trust, one that bypassed my son completely. He'd never bothered to ask what became of my portion. He assumed, like everything else, it would default to him. Mr. Daniels leaned back, tapping his pen. "They'll contest it," he said. "They can try," I replied. "But the signatures are dated, notarized, and verified. The patent was registered in my name, not his." He gave a low whistle. "You always were the quiet strategist." "Quiet doesn't mean powerless," I said. We drafted the papers for disclosure, ensuring every document was legal and traceable. By the time I left, the sun had risen, fully warm light spilling through glass towers downtown. I watched people hurry past, holding their coffee cups, chasing meetings and deadlines. For years I'd chased approval instead, but not anymore. When I stepped off the bus near the house, Clarissa was waiting at the gate, phone in hand. "Where did you go?" she demanded. "Out," I said simply. Her eyes narrowed. "You should tell us next time before leaving." I smiled. "You'll know soon enough." That night I sat on my cot, the folder hidden once again. They laughed upstairs, clinking glasses over plans that would never happen. Because tomorrow the will would be read, and for once, the silence would not belong to me. The day of the will reading arrived, draped in false grief. Clarissa wore black silk, too bright for mourning, and my son adjusted his tie like he was preparing for a photo shoot. I sat in the corner, unnoticed, a guest in my own life. The lawyer, Mr. Daniels, arranged the papers neatly before him. "I'll begin," he said, voice calm but heavy with what he knew was coming. The room stilled. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window, like applause waiting to happen. Mr. Daniels started reading aloud. "The late Mr. Hargrove leaves the family home and his remaining estate to his son, Michael Hargrove." Clarissa's eyes glittered. "With one binding condition," the lawyer continued. Michael frowned. "Condition?" Mr. Daniels nodded and flipped to the next page. "The one I had quietly signed all those years ago. Effective upon the passing of both spouses, all controlling shares of Hargrove Designs. Transfer to the joint founder, Mrs. Eleanor Hargrove, and her appointed heirs as designated by her private trust." Clarissa blinked, her smirk collapsing. "What trust?" she snapped. The lawyer looked at me. "Mrs. Hargrove, would you like to explain?" I stood slowly, every bone in my body remembering the weight of years. "When your father and I started this company," I said, "we had nothing but an idea and each other. I built it beside him. Every pattern, every formula, every concept, my hands shaped it. And when he died, I protected what was left." Michael's face drained of color. "That's impossible," he stammered. "No," I said softly. "It's legal." Mr. Daniels slid the patent documents across the table, my signature bold and undeniable. "The company was co-founded," he confirmed. "Her trust retains full ownership upon his passing." Clarissa shot to her feet. "This is fraud!" "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "This is memory. This is every night. I stayed awake so your husband could chase his dreams without starving. This is every plan you both made to erase me." The silence was electric. Then Mr. Daniels closed the folder. "As executor," he said, "I must respect the documents. Effective immediately. Control of all Hargrove assets, transfers to Mrs. Hargrove, and her appointed beneficiaries." Michael sank into his chair, stunned. Clarissa's eyes burned holes through me. "What now?" she hissed. "Now," I said, "you move out. The laundry room is free. I walked out to the porch, the storm finally breaking into steady rain. Each drop felt like release, like years of silence washing away. The house stood behind me, heavy with memories, but it no longer owned me. I had kept my promise, not to them, but to myself. In my bag were the papers that proved more than ownership. They proved existence. That I had been here, that I had built, that I mattered. For the first time in years, I felt light. I didn't need applause, forgiveness, or understanding. Just truth, and I had it. As I stepped into the rain, I thought of my husband's voice, calm and warm in my memory. "You'll outthink them all someday." He was right. They had tried to erase me from my story, but I had written the ending myself.